And so when you think about Jesus, what picture comes to your mind? Who is Jesus to you? And so in this series, we've been, filling in that blank or filling in that sentence over and over again. And we started off by talking about Jesus is living hope because of the resurrection, that every day our hope can be renewed. No matter what is happening in our lives in that moment of that day, our hope can be renewed. And then we talked about the fact that Jesus is fearless, that he didn't shrink back from the powers that be. We talked about Jesus' humanity, that Jesus understands us not because he is God, although he is God. He understands us because he's shared in our humanity. He's human. And then last week we talked about Jesus is truth. He is truth. And today we're going to look at this sentence again as we wrap up this series. We're going to look at Jesus' interaction with some religious leaders of his, and they despised Jesus because all these people were gathered around him. And let me tell you something, there's a whole lot more of these kind of people than the righteous out there. Now you understand why the crowds got so big. They just, there's hope. Maybe God does accept me. Maybe God could accept me. And then the next verse says this. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, there's these two groups that we're talking about, they muttered, this man welcomes sinner and he eats with them. He's like, come on in, all tax collectors and all these moral reprobates, come on in. And not only come on in, but let's sit down and have a meal. That's like high relational capital right there. They're like, you can't be around those people. They defile you. You're not acceptable to God. Get away from those people. If you say that you're a teacher of the law, you gotta exclude those people. You gotta avoid those people. And Jesus said, no. You gotta understand. You have a misunderstanding. All your knowledge about the law and about God, you've blown it. And so Jesus tells three powerful stories right in a row. Normally Jesus would tell a story and then move on, but he just tells three stories right in a row. Now, I'm not going to read you all the stories, but I'm going to reference them. And what we'll see from these stories is there are three common threads that are kind of woven through all of these stories. And the first common thread is this. Jesus tells a story that something valuable is lost. And so he tells a story about a shepherd who has 100 sheep. And he goes in for the night and he counts all the sheep, kind of doing an inventory, and he finds out that one of those sheep is lost. And he goes, oh no, it's lost. Look, if you're a farmer or you have cattle or horses or whatever it is that you have, and you find out you've got 30 horses and one of them's missing, what do? You go looking for it. Why? Because it's valuable. So something of value wound up lost. There was another story that he told about a woman who had 10 coins, and it may have been a widow, and this was her, her entire, life savings, and she loses one of those coins. Or sometimes in those days, because of prearranged marriages, or fathers would give their daughters a headband with 10 coins, and he would go out and parade her around in front of everybody trying to find a taker. And it's almost like saying, hey, you know what? I know she's not pretty, but she's got money. All right. And if she walked out of the house with one of those coins missing from her headband, no one would want her because she's irresponsible. And so it's very valuable to her. Maybe her life savings, or maybe her dowry for marriage someday, and it's very valuable to her. It wounds up missing. And then the most famous story that Jesus told was about a son who had a relational rift with his father. And he just says, Father, I don't love you, I don't like you, and really I wish you were dead. And so if you would just give me the inheritance that's coming to me upon your death, if you give it to me right now, I'll be out your hair. And then he left. He was lost in every way. Morally, from the family, he was just lost. So all of these stories, something of value is missing. And then the second thread that we see in these stories is that which is lost is so valuable that it warrants an all-out search. The shepherd finds that one of the sheep is missing, and he goes out in the evening and he goes into the treacherous terrain, up in the hills and the valleys and over rocks and all kinds of, and he's looking because sheep are dumb. They're harmless, but they're dumb. And they get themselves into danger all the time. And he just realizes, you know what? If I don't go out and rescue that sheep, it's going to be disaster for that sheep. That sheep is going to get harmed. It may even die. It may be attacked by another animal. And so I've got to go out and I'll do whatever it takes to find that sheep. The woman who lost the coin realized, oh my goodness, I've lost, part of my, life savings, or I've lost part of my dowry. And it says that she ransacks her house and she sweeps. And we think like we, sweep our floors today. But back in those days, they were reeds that were sewn together and they were on top of the dirt floor. And so if you lost a coin, it could get under, it would be very hard to find. And so she searches and searches and she ransacks her house to find that coin. The father doesn't go searching for the son, but he looks out on the horizon. And he makes home such a inviting place that maybe, just perhaps, the son will have a change of heart and come back. And the other thread that goes through these stories is that when the lost is found, it warrants a celebration. There's this massive celebration. So the shepherd comes back with the sheep draped across his shoulders, and he's coming back in at in the evening, and he calls out to his friends, and he calls out to his neighbors. He's, I know everybody's been concerned about this, but I'm just telling you, I found my sheep. I found Dolly here. Dolly's so precious to me. And so we're going to celebrate because she's back and she's safe, The woman who lost the coin, she searches and searches and searches and then finally finds the coin. Ladies, have you ever lost your wedding band? You're just frantic looking for it. It's like, oh my gosh, I found it. Yay. Let's go out to dinner and celebrate, for I found the... So she calls her friends and her neighbors and says, hey, come, let's celebrate because I found the coin. Maybe I'll get married after all, But in the story of the lost son, it's very interesting what happens because he leaves town, he goes to a distant country where no one knows him, and he lives it up in riotous living, he lives it up in immoral living, and he blows his small fortune on just stupid stuff in life. Things that are going to leave him empty at the end of the day, and when he runs out of money, guess what else he runs out of? Friends. Because they're just interested not in him, but they're interested in what he can do for them. And so he runs out of money, he runs out of friends, he has no job, he has no way to provide for himself. There's a famine that hits the land, and he is literally starving to death. And he thinks, you know what, maybe I can get hired on at one of these pig farmers, which for a Jewish boy would have been like the last thing you would have wanted to do because pigs were unclean. He already knew this from the Pharisees and from the experts in the law. But he finds himself farming pigs. And he's so hungry, he just thought, if I could just eat what the pigs are eating. That's a long way from home, isn't it? And then he has this thought that comes to him. He says, you know what? My dad's hired servants eat better than this. They're treated better than this. And although I've dishonored my father, and I've made a complete mess of my life, maybe if I go back and he'll have me and I can sleep in the servants' quarters and I'll do whatever, but at least I'll have food. Maybe, just maybe, he'll take me back as a slave. And so he goes back, and this is what it says in Luke 15, verse 20. So he got up, and he went to his father. It took a lot of courage for him to turn around. And sometimes when we need to do a turnaround in life, it takes a lot of courage for us to admit, you know what, I've blown it. But he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, like the father saw him coming in the horizon, while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with, and if you were a Pharisee, or if you were one of the experts in the law, one of the teachers of the law, you know exactly what should have been filled with the father's heart. Anger and disgust and hatred and, like, I'm going to boot you out of the family. How dare you come back here? That's what it should have been in the father's heart. But Jesus, this is his story, and it's going to end the way he wants it to end. And he says, but his father's heart was filled with what? Compassion. The father loves his son. His heart was filled with compassion for him. He came not so that we would feel worse about ourselves. He came so that we would feel loved. Because he is love. That's what he is. Jesus comes and he says, you know what? I know they feel worthless. I know they don't feel like they measure up. And all the rules and all the regulations that all the religious people put on people, I'm just telling you, I've come to set them free from all that. Why? It's not because of what they're doing. It's because of who I am. You see, it doesn't make any difference. Whatever, whoever, wherever. Whoever you are, get this, whoever you are, whatever you have done, and wherever you have been in life, here's the thing. Jesus loves you. He loves you.